Yeah, please.
Master, actually, for the past 5 years, I was keeping Golu in my house, grand Golu, during this Dasara time.
Okay.
This time, because of my son, myself and my mother and daughter, they are separated from me. And as I am a widow, I should not give the things, offerings to others. So my daughter will do that one. As she has gone to my mother's house, I kept the Golu very, very simple, and I'm running out of money. I couldn't spare much grand Golu this time, as my health is also down. So I kept only 3 floors, and just Mata's alone they came. From the bundle, I took those idols and I kept. And I cried, literally cried one day. Amma, will you accept my offerings? I have kept so much things last time, and this time I am doing this. Will you accept my worship? Like that, I cried. The very next day, morning, I had a dream, Master, where a lady, one of my relatives, she came and took some kumkumam from the place where I kept the Kolu, and her name was Sundari.
Okay.
And when I inquired my mother, she told her full name is Tripura Sundari.
Okay.
So the first 3 days are, I also worshipped with Lalita Tripura Sundari slogam, Lalita Sahasranamam and all. And I had that dream thing. And when you yesterday explained in the intro part, I thought some spiritual activity has come and she accepted my worship with that, whatever I asked. I feel that, but you have to tell whether it is a spiritual aspect or not.
Definitely, it's a spiritual experience only. Yeah, nice. Nice that you have shared your experience. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, anybody else would like to share your experience? Some spiritual experiences. Yeah, anybody please?
Sir, I'm Pratibha, sir.
Yeah, Kritika?
Pratibha.
Pratibha.
My
Yeah,
daughter's name is
yeah.
Kritika.
Okay. Yeah, please.
From her tab, I'm doing this, sir. While meditating, sometimes I see some images in my meditation, sir. I don't know how I am related, but sometimes some different images. How I am connected, I don't know.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not able to connect to that, relate to that thing, sir.
Okay.
Sometimes I see Hanumanji doing severe meditation.
1 second.
He sits like.
Hello. Yeah. Please tell me, sir. Yeah, Prabhakarji. Yeah. Okay, password. Just hold on. I will send it. 1 second, please.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, please continue, please.
So while doing Chakradhyana,
Okay.
Dhyana, sometimes I see Hanumanji doing meditation, sitting on top of the mountain.
Okay.
Likewise, Hanumanji is sitting in the position of Shiv Bhagwan, doing
Okay.
meditation,
Okay.
wearing all those Rudraksha and everything.
Okay.
And top of him, full lights and moon, stars are appearing, sir.
Okay.
Suddenly, in 1 second, it comes and just it spark and just go. Sir.
Okay. 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 Good.
I don't know. I just get like shivering and just open my eyes. I don't know what it is, but
Okay.
it's a very nice experience. Sir.
Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. Any other experiences like you're able to see what is going to happen in future, either in your dreams or whether you are in sitting in meditation. So when you're in a state of meditation or in sleep, did you ever come across something which is going to happen in your future, like death of some people or birth of
Yes.
some people? Do you have that kind of experiences?
Yes, sir. One real life experience, sir. Our factory was in severe problem. It was in a court case.
Okay.
Case was finished, but we were not hand over the paper.
Okay.
Due to lockdown, I was not able to receive our factory papers.
Okay.
So I was doing just meditation. That time Baba came, sir.
Okay.
Sai Baba.
Okay. Okay.
He directly, along with us, he opened the doors of our factory and took.
Okay.
He came into our factory, and he was standing under the coconut tree, which was in our factory, sir. We were just worshipping him.
Okay.
Within 1 month, we received our factory and our papers also, sir.
Oh, that's great. So something extraordinary has happened.
Really.
Yeah, you could
Shivering.
see something
Even
which
now,
is going
I
to.
worship that coconut tree. I've kept a Sai Baba Murti under that tree, sir.
Okay.
Daily, whenever I go there, I just worship there, sir.
Okay, good. Nice to know your experiences. Anybody else? Have you had any kind of astral experience, any one of you? Astral in the sense, during night time, during deep sleep, suddenly you feel as if you are falling down somewhere, or you can actually see yourself actually floating over your body and going into different unknown places. Have you ever experienced these kind of things? Any one of you?
Master, while sleep, I feel my body is suddenly falling down, and
Yeah.
but actually, I'm experiencing almost frequently. You can say.
Yeah. So usually most of you might have experienced this kind of thing, like during deep sleep, suddenly you'll come to consciousness, you feel as if you have just fallen down somewhere and you'll find yourself on the bed. Or it might be that sometimes you're actually getting floated or flying off without any control and you'll be in panic. Have you ever had these kind of experiences? Anyone of you?
Hello, sir.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Yeah, I got experience, sir. Actually, I was sleeping, but in my dream, I don't know. Actually, I was flying.
Okay.
But not in a physical dimension. My body is not there, but I'm
Yes.
flying.
Yeah, you feel as if you're flying
yeah.
or drifting off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the sky, actually, I don't know, somewhere I'm like heaven, I'm flying.
Okay.
That kind of experience. Another experience, I had a dream that Baba is just showing the hand like blessings, and kind of what you called in pranic healing, the divine healing energy. We are imagining that kind of brilliant white liquid, no?
Okay.
That
Yeah.
I got experience before pranic healing itself.
Okay.
That I had experienced. On that time, I don't know. I thought a kind of vibration. I felt energetic on that time.
Could
Then
you hear any sounds during that time? Like
No,
Noise is rumbling
I
noise in
felt
your ears.
blessing, and I felt energized. But
Okay.
on that time, I didn't go any pranic healing. I don't know anything about Reiki or pranic
Okay.
healing, nothing.
Okay.
After that, I joined pranic healing. On that
Mhm.
time, that guru was telling, just imagine a brilliant white liquid, those
Okay.
things. On that time, I understood, oh my God, I got a dream like this.
Okay.
How
Okay.
I got this dream, and that kind of experience I had.
Okay. Good. Yeah. See, basically that suggests that basically you are sensitive, like means you already have some of your psychic powers activated, like because you are able to actually peep into the future and you can actually do the kind of astral travel. If not the conscious travel, you are able to do that. That's good thing. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Anybody else? Any dream coming true? Like, are you able to see what is going to happen tomorrow or something like that? Okay, so I just wanted to develop an interactive session. So that's the reason why I started asking about your psychic experiences. So let me first explain how I got into this kind of things. So my psychic journey or my spiritual journey has started very early in life. Like maybe when I was at the age of 12 or 13, 14, something during my early teens, I have got some experiences in life. So those experiences are both the life experiences which have happened in my life, as well as those things which have happened during my sleep time. Means
Hello.
during both wakeful state and during even the
You call me after 2 hours.
sleep state, I could experience some unusual phenomena, means not normal phenomena. So let me start. So one day while I was sleeping and suddenly my body started shivering. I don't know, I was not conscious, I was in deep sleep. Suddenly I found myself, my body actually flying off, drifting off without any control, and the noise was very, very heavy, like it was like wind gush. Means my eardrums, they were almost about to rip off. Means that kind of sounds I was hearing, and I was actually feeling as if I'm actually drifting off. So I was in a lot of panic. I don't know what to do. And then suddenly everything cooled down and I could find myself actually floating in the air up in the sky. So I was there. I thought maybe I died. So I thought this is what death is. Then I was thinking, oh God, what if my people, my family members looking at me think that I'm dead, and what if they cremate my body? I was under a lot of panic. The moment I started panicking, I got back into my body with a jerk, and I realized that it was just an experience. So I was having so much of panic during that time. I was an young boy, so I didn't have any experience or any information about these kind of things. I thought maybe I died, and then I came back into this airplane. So after this episode, there were so many episodes where I was actually finding myself getting astrally projected, and I'm actually floating in air. So at one point, I used to see my mother. My mother used to be sleeping. So during one experience, I saw my mother walking, and I went and I was also walking, and actually we were both flying. We are floating in the air. Then I woke up, I saw my mother is sleeping in the other room, I'm sleeping in this room. Then I realized that this is not a real experience, it is only a psychic experience. So like that, I started getting so many experiences, and as I was growing, I was actually having some kind of fear, thinking that, oh God, I should not get this kind of experience. Just before going to bed every day, I used to pray God, saying that, God, I should not have any kind of these unusual experiences. So it went on. Then I started understanding about astral travel. I came to know that astral travel is something some people have, and I got to understand, means I got to read some books about astral travel. Then I realized that, okay, this is some experience, psychic experience, which can be very, very useful. So once I understood about this, I stopped fearing this experience. I started enjoying this experience. It started like that. And then I became a conscious astral traveler, in the sense, whenever I want to get into astral plane, I use certain techniques, and using these techniques, I just astrally project myself. I will just go out of my body and I'll start wandering into different places. So during the early phases of this experience, once I got an unconscious astral experience, that time I was actually floating. I was thinking, instead of drifting here and there, I thought, why can't I make some conscious travel? So that time I thought, okay, let me go and meet Master Chokoksu, who is my pranic healing master. Like I've been trained under him. So I thought, okay, usually physically it is difficult. He lives in different country. I thought, let me just go and meet Master. The moment I thought like that, I just landed in a place which is having 2 stories, and I found myself floating in air right in front of the door of a bedroom, and that door opened automatically. The moment I just appeared, the door automatically opened, and I found Master Chokoksu. He was actually wearing white dress, and he was actually sitting on a bed in a meditative posture. The moment that door opened, I saw Master. I just did namaste, and even without opening, Master also said namaste. Then it ended. I went back to the place where I have actually started off my journey. So I was so thrilled, thinking that, oh God, I could visit Master at an astral plane. And he was so kind that he did not say, don't come. Instead, he just allowed me to have the darshan, and we did namaskar to each other, and we parted away. So that is one of the fantastic and fabulous experience I had in life. So then I became more and more confident, and then I thought, now where should I go? Then suddenly a thought came into mind. Most of you must be knowing about Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam. Lord Venkateshwara, he actually stays there in temple, Tirumala Tirupati Balaji temple. So, there is so much of rush, means you cannot actually have peaceful darshan. Even if you stand in queue for hours together, you will only get to see God only for a few seconds, and you'll be pushed off. It's very, very difficult. Means the experience of actually having darshan in Tirupati is little tedious. Like, means it is very, you have to struggle a lot. So I thought, okay, this is a wonderful chance. Why can't I go and meet Venkateshwara Swami in this state? The moment I thought about it, immediately I found myself floating over Garbhagudi. Night time, it was night time, and it was brilliantly shining. The Garbhagudi, the golden dome, it was actually shining with brilliant colors. So I was actually floating on the surface of Garbhagudi from the top. Then I was actually trying to enter into it through Garbhagudi upper surface. Instead of going from the main gate, I was actually trying to penetrate. The moment I started making an attempt to penetrate, a big thunderbolt has struck me and it has thrown me off. So violent electric shock. I was just repelled, and I found myself actually falling down on my bed. I was shivering. My whole body is actually trembling with lot of sweat. I was having so much of panic, pain. Like I was thinking, oh God, what has happened? Then I realized that, okay, an ordinary soul like us trying to make an unauthorized entry into the temple, means it has got its own defense mechanism. It has got its own energy fields, which actually throws off small atmas like us. Means we don't have that kind of entitlement to actually make that kind of entry into the temple. So that is how the temples, the gods, the shrines are all protected. Means they have an shield, energy shield, which will not allow evil spirits or common spirits like us to just make an unauthorized entry. So that is also a wonderful experience. Then I convinced myself saying that, yes, I've done a wrong thing. And then I prayed to Venkateshwara Swami to forgive me, saying that, okay, I've made a mistake. Instead of actually taking proper darshan, I was actually trying to have this kind of thing. So these kind of experiences are really, really mind-boggling. Like you cannot believe unless you experience it. I might have told you a story, but you will only take it with a pinch of salt. Is it true or not? Because unless you experience this, you cannot understand. Whatever I've told, maybe I've communicated only 5% of my experience, but you are not getting the same kind of thrill, the same kind of feelings that I had. So most of the spiritual experiences are not objective experiences, in the sense you cannot demonstrate to people saying that, yes, I had this experience. You can only talk a little bit about it, but unless the person experiences it, they will not be convinced with what we are saying. So for that reason, I just started off my session with a small request saying that, okay, share your psychic experiences. So if you people have some kind of psychic experiences, you will be able to better correlate with what I'm saying. Otherwise, you will not be able to understand or believe. So even if you don't have these kind of experiences, psychic experiences, only thing is that you need to have an open mind, an open heart. So when I'm saying, you have to believe these things. When you believe, then your acceptance will be there, and even you can start experiencing these kind of unusual phenomena. So like that, if I keep narrating the kind of experiences that I had in my life, I can write big books, because my life, half of my life is psychic life and other half is normal day-to-day life. So I give importance to both my psychic experiences as well as my physical experiences. And as a matter of fact, I can actually on the spot give 100 dreams which I have seen and which actually surfaced up the next day morning or next week or next month. Like that means I have seen so many dreams which are about to happen. That means the future is already cast to an extent and we are only experiencing it. As we are moving towards the future, certain things which are already destined in future, we are able to see them. For example, assassination of Rajiv Gandhi. I had a dream just 2 days before the assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, our former Prime Minister. In that dream, there was a royal person who was actually assassinated, and we are witnessing the cremation of that particular person. Means there was a big procession going on, and I was actually watching. I know that this is some kind of royal person, some top figure. He got assassinated, and I was actually looking at the procession going, and I was actually witnessing the funeral ceremony. Just after 2 days, Rajiv Gandhi got assassinated. So then I could correlate, like, of course, I did not see Rajiv Gandhi as the Prime Minister or the son of ex-Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, but I could visualize a person who is actually similar to Rajiv Gandhi. Means already the information which was there in the future, I could actually visit, or rather I could actually get that kind of information. So that is something very amazing. That is one dream. Like that, many dreams, I had many dreams wherein I've seen things which I'm going to watch on TV next day morning. So during one time, I was actually witnessing 3 people getting hanged. Those people were sentenced to death, and the punishment was death by hanging. I saw it, I was actually seeing it. And then next day morning, I got up in the newspaper, same news. Means I had seen things which are going to appear on newspapers. I've seen things which are going to be on television, news channels, and like that, many things. And you will be very much surprised that some of people who died, just after their death, they appeared in front of me during my sleep state or dream state. So in one episode, one of my distant relative, she was living in some place, some village, She had a cancer and she had to be operated. So that much I know. That time, people were very reluctant to donate blood. She wanted blood, but nobody was ready to give. Being a small guy, I told, don't worry, I'll give. She felt so happy. That lady, after she died, it so happened that all my family members have gone for wedding to one place. I was the only person at home. I was preparing for my examinations. I was in engineering that time. So I was reading and suddenly I went off into sleep. The moment I went into sleep, I had a lucid dreaming. I was thinking, I was actually walking down the stairs, got into my house. I sat in a sofa. When I sat in a sofa, there is another person who is sitting next to me, and that happens to be my mom's sister. She was announcing that our relative, Arun Kumari, she died. I had a shock. Hearing that, I had a shock. What? She died? I just looked at her, and the person is the same person, the one who has died. I woke up with a jerk. I was on the terrace, not inside the house. So I quickly went down because I was under a lot of shock and fear. I went down. It was around 2 o'clock in the night. So I did not sleep because I had a feeling that I saw something like a ghost. Next day morning, my mom came back. She was cooking. I went to the kitchen and I told Mom, I think that lady is going to die. She had a shock. She said, why are you saying this? I said, this is what I've experienced. Then she told that that person has died exactly the same time during which I had the sleep. Like that, this is also a very unusual phenomena. Like that, I've witnessed the death of few people in my life. Means they die and they immediately appear in front of me, as if I'm really talking to them, as if I'm actually being with them. I don't realize that I was in dream that time, but later I come to know that it is a dream. So this is also an unusual psychic phenomenon. So like that, if you look at my life, there are so many episodes which are filled with these kind of unusual experiences. And as a matter of fact, because of these experiences, I developed a lot of curiosity about life and death. What exactly is life? What is death? Who are we? Why are we? Why are we coming into existence? Who are we? What is our essential nature? That is how my spiritual journey has started. So once I started understanding about it, I started reading so many books about it. And after YouTube came, I started doing a lot of research using YouTube. And now I've come to some conclusions about life. Okay, this is what is life. And then based on these kind of experiences, I've actually written a book by name, A Thinking Heart, An Implementing Mind, An Experiencing Being, An Evolving Soul. This is the title of the book, in which I have actually talked about all the psychic phenomena that I have encountered, and I have given a rational explanation about why it happens. So it is very much possible for us. See, I'm not a yogi, I'm not a saint, I'm not a big religious worshipper or sadhu, sannyasi, nothing. I'm an ordinary person. I'm a computer engineering graduate. I was in IT industry for the past 2.5 decades. I worked in multinational companies. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own businesses. I'm into normal life. I'm married. I have a son. Like that, I'm a normal person. I'm not any supernatural person, but I have experienced all the supernatural things or other kind of things or paranormal phenomena. So what does it mean? It means these are the experiences, not an exclusive prerogative of some people like saints, sadhus, or other people. Ordinary people like us can also acquire these kind of skills or this kind of traits, provided we practice it. First thing is that we are not aware that we have so many powers within us. We think that we are normal, ordinary people. Yes, we are ordinary, normal people. But we should understand that every person born on this earth is born with immense potential of psychic powers. having psychic powers is a common thing. It's not an extraordinary thing. Only thing is that we need to actually put focus on it and try to acquire these kind of skills. So even physical skills, as a physical body, we have 2 limbs, we have 2 legs, we have tongue. Using these organs, we are able to actually do some kind of manipulation. Like we are able to walk from one place to another place, we are moving using our feet. But as such, when we are born, we didn't have this kind of talent to walk. We have taken at least 3 years of hard practice to acquire this skill. Even to talk a language, even to talk a foreign language, we have put a lot of time in terms of practicing it. Similarly, psychic powers. I'm not talking about the physical powers. I'm talking about the psychic powers. Psychic powers in the sense, your ability to see what is going to happen in future, your ability to see what has happened in this place 1,000 years back, your ability to actually predict the future of some person, your ability to actually reach to different dimension and get some kind of information there are all part of our natural powers. As human beings, we are born with these kind of things. Only thing is that we need to practice these things. First thing is have awareness. You should be aware what you are. You are not just a biological being. We are not just biological beings. We are more than biological beings. Human body is a complex host of different kind of systems: electrical system, magnetic system, electromagnetic system, biological system, chemical systems. When we ask what is human body, we just say, okay, flesh and blood. It is not just that. There are so many systems which are integrated, and as a whole, it is actually functioning. If you look at the human brain, it is one of the most sophisticated systems that man has ever witnessed in the entire creation. Our understanding of brain, even today, even after having so much of research, is only a fraction. We really don't understand our body, but we should make an attempt to understand. So the exploration, if it is done from the outer side, you will not find anything. The journey has to be inside. You need to actually go deep inside. The best way to do research, spiritual research, is not by going outward, trying to get information from outside. The best way to do spiritual research is to invest in an inward journey. Yeah. So the best way is to inner journey. You have to go deep inside your mind, and most of the answers you will get even without looking into the book, or even if you want to refer a book, even before touching the book, you will get what is the essence of that. So this is what is about the psychic powers. So now we will go in detail. I'll go into the presentation. So I'll be talking about few psychic powers, and I'll tell how we can actually tap them or invoke them. Okay, so let us start with our presentation. So basically, this is a spiritual empowerment program. We are now going to unleash your hidden spiritual powers during this workshop. Okay, so we are not going to focus on physical powers. We are only trying to invoke your spiritual powers. So first of all, we should understand the model, like, or rather, who are we? How are we connected to this universe? What is our relationship with the supreme source of energy or the supreme source of intelligence? How are we connected? Who are we? See, this is the basic phase that we have been trying to address since many ages. Like as human beings, the biggest quest is, who am I? Everybody at some point or the other will be thinking, who am I? Since we are in the physical plane, we are born on the earth, we have a body and we associate ourselves mostly with the body. We think that we are the body. Most of the people, more than 80% of people, their consciousness is concentrated in the physical body. When we ask them, who are we? They'll say, my name is this, I'm born to these people, I belong to this community, I'm this by profession. But if we ask them again and again, who are you? Then there will be a point when they cannot answer who they are. Most of us, we cannot answer who we are. What is our essential nature? We don't know. We are clueless about how we were born in this earth. Why did we come into this earth? Are we temporary entities or are we permanent entities? We know that body is something which perishes. We know that whether we like it or not, one day or the other we are going to die. So we know that physical body is perishable. It is not a permanent thing. And at the same time, our scriptures, almost every scripture written on earth says that Atma is something which is indestructible. Atma cannot be destroyed because Atma was never born. It is always in a state of existence. That is what most of our scriptures say. Atma never dies, only the body dies. Most of us here, we are all belong to Hindu religion, and our Hindu religion, it actually strongly believes in reincarnation. So there are three levels. One level is the Paramatma, means the supreme self, the entity, the entire existence is embodied within this Paramatma. It is indestructible, it doesn't take birth, death, it is just like that. From Paramatma, from the gigantic ocean of Paramatma, a small droplet extends and then it is known as Atma. And from this droplet of Atma, still tinier portion will descend, and that is what is known as Jivatma. So the concept is Atma, Paramatma and Jivatma. Jivatma is a small portion of Atma which has extended or distended itself into the physical body. So what happens when the human body gets created in the womb of mother? An Atma will go and occupy that body. It will take it as a vessel. It will take it as a vehicle to come into this physical dimension. In order to exist in physical dimension, Atma requires a physical body. So that is how Atma, in order to experience, in order to gain knowledge through experience, it enters into the physical dimension. Why are we here on earth? Are we here for getting into that job or marrying this person or buying this car? These are all trivial things. We did not come into this world for buying houses or for building businesses or having romance with some people. It is not for that. We have come for a different cause. In order to fulfill this cause, we take repeated incarnations. As per the theory, Atma is not as pure as Paramatma. Means what it means is the entire Paramatma is not purified. The entire God itself is undergoing transformation, or we can say that it is actually undergoing perfection. So the process of perfection is a small tiny droplet of that Atma, Paramatma extends and it experiences different kind of things. And through this experience, knowledge is gained, and through knowledge, the character or whatever the purity of that entity progresses, and once this Atma becomes as pure as Paramatma, means the purified aspect of Paramatma, the process of life and death will cease. Till that time, Atma, which is a distended portion of Paramatma, it actually descends down into the physical plane, occupies a physical body, and then it keeps purifying itself. So the entire prakriya, the entire process is a purification process. So it is through us God is perceiving himself, and it is through us God is actually manifesting himself. So every entity, whether it is an animal, whether it is a tree, plant, everything is in a state of evolution. Everything starts with dead mass. It actually starts the journey. It undergoes different incarnations as a mineral, as a rock, as a mineral, as a plant, as an animal, bird, and finally it actually comes to a stage of human being. And in human state, the soul will take approximately 64 lakh incarnations. So this is the amount of time that is required for the process of soul purification. That is what the scripture says. So we have come into this world not for the first time, nor it is going to be the last time that we are here on earth. We have been here in several places on earth, in different time zones, in different incarnations. So in some incarnation, we might be a beggar. Some incarnation, we might be a beautiful girl. In some incarnation, we might be some kind of people, like we might be born in different races, different places, different ages, all for gaining some experience in this physical dimension. So as we are actually acquiring, taking birth and death, we are using physical body only as a temporary instrument. This temporary physical instrument is equipped with 5 senses, with which we are able to perceive the creation. So what is human body? Human body is a temporary entity. You became conscious only at the age of 4 or 5 years. Before that, you didn't have any kind of consciousness. So after death, you're not going to have a body. So then who are you? You're sitting in a car and you're moving in a car. So since you're sitting in the car, do you identify yourself as a car? You know that the car is just a temporary vehicle which is used for moving from one place to another place. So it is just a vehicle for navigating from one point to other point. Similarly, you should see your human body not as if 100% of yourself, it is only a fragment of yourself. It belongs to you, no doubt about it. Nobody can take away, say that, okay, I want your body. Some dead relative will come and say, no, give me your body. They are not going to do it. Even if they do it, you will not be able to give it because you are the rightful owner of your body during this incarnation. But you are not the total body. Means you're not body itself in essence. So body is something and your inner self, the invisible dimension, is something else. You have to make a strong distinction between your physical body and your psychic body. As long as you don't make the distinction between psychic body and the physical body, you will never understand what we are talking about. So as a physical body, we have certain physical capabilities. And as a psychic being or a spiritual being, we have got different kind of capabilities. So physical capabilities versus psychic capabilities. So if I ask you to tell you the physical capabilities, you'll tell, okay, we can see, this is my capability. I can hear, it's a capability. I can talk, it's a capability of expression. I can feel, it's also a capability. These are all like sensors. So all these things, they are just coming and touching your body. If there is an object, what is happening? the image of that object is actually traveling in the form of an electromagnetic signal, and it is touching your eyeball, entering into the retina, and it is actually converted into an electrical impulse. And that electrical impulse is converted into an image by your brain. So the whole world that we are actually witnessing is nothing but an electrical impulse, electromagnetic impulses, which are striking our senses. The sound waves, the eyes, everything is that. So the body is designed in such a way that they can actually transform the signals which are coming from the external world and touching our sensory organs into meaningful objects or information. So this body is just having that kind of capabilities. So when we talk about the senses, it is not only the sense of sight, smell, or this thing. There are certain other things which are beyond these senses. And these senses belong to the domain of your soul or the spirit. The body cannot pursue those kind of things because the wavelength under which these organs operate are limited. Like this. So if you look at the entire electromagnetic spectrum that exists in this universe, only a tiny portion of it, you can see this tiny portion. Here you have so much of bandwidth. Out of this bandwidth, our human beings, they're capable of only perceiving information that is existing only in this region. We are perceiving only in this region. Doesn't mean that information is confined only to this region. There is a lot of information which is actually existing here. The radio signals, they're actually operating at this level, not at this level. So that's how we cannot see radio waves. We can hear radio waves because they were actually converted into human audible signals. Similarly, there is a lot of information that is present in X-rays, gamma rays, lot. What does it mean? It means that human beings have certain limitations. What they can see in this universe is confined only to a small aperture, a small bandwidth. So with that bandwidth, we are actually trying to construct the universe, and we are trying to explain the universe, or we are trying to understand the universe. So many people say there is no soul. The reason why they say is they can't see it, and they will challenge people to show it. Nobody can show it because it is existing at a different frequency. If you look at the entire universe, it is nothing but a vast spectrum of frequencies, different frequencies. So human frequency is confined to a small bandwidth in his physical form. But once he is out of the physical form, if he is pursuing the universe, he is perceiving at a different frequency. So things which were not visible to the physical eyes can be perceived at a different level. Those things which are not visible to us, they become visible when we change our frequency. So in essence, what we need to understand is we are having a low bandwidth, that too within a specified frequencies. So our information, our ability to access information is constrained or limited only to this bandwidth. So people who die, they exist not in this zone, not in this narrow zone, but maybe in this region or in this region. We cannot pursue them. So we think they are not existing. But there are some animals which can perceive beyond this spectrum of human vision. There are some animals which they'll start reacting, looking at things in the air because they can see those images or they can perceive those signals which human organs are failing to have. The best example is dog. Dogs, they can see, they can hear what humans cannot. And that's how you start seeing dogs barking at unknown sources as if there is some person. And we will be wondering why. Because they are able to see, we are not able to see. Similarly, other animals, there are certain animals which can pursue ultraviolet visions. Infrared, the lower side, some animals, they can actually see, they can hear. So if you look at human audio bandwidth, it ranges between 20 to 20,000 hertz. Any sound signal having the frequency between 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, we can hear very clearly, we can hear. But if a sound is having a frequency less than 20 hertz or about 20,000 hertz, we can't hear. Though the source is here, we can't hear. So let us assume that we have brought a musical instrument which is playing a music at a frequency of less than 20 hertz, though it is near my ears, I can't hear. Or if the music is played at 20,000 hertz, beyond 20,000 hertz, and even if I'm holding it, I cannot hear anything. I experience only absolute silence. What does it mean? It means that human organs or human body has certain limitations in terms of accessing information. So just because we cannot pursue them doesn't mean that they don't exist. It is your limitation. It is not the limitation of nature. Many people, they come up with this argument saying that show me, show me. If it is that show me, it is not possible to show. But science and technology has evolved to such an extent that it is able to actually show what is prohibited to human eye. Today, we have developed a technology wherein we use X-rays to see what is existing inside our skin, under the flesh. It shows that there are some calcium rods like bones, which is visible only to the X-rays. If X-rays were not there, people would not have believed that there existed a bone. So science and technology has actually evolved wherein they're actually extending the capabilities of human beings. Similarly, today we are able to perceive ultraviolet rays. Like that, there are so many signals which are actually passing through us. Now you're sitting in your room, you feel as if nothing is happening. You witness a cool, calm place. But as a matter of fact, you're sitting in an ocean of electromagnetic waves. And these electromagnetic waves are actually carrying telephone signals, TV signals, radio signals, and all signals. They're actually riding on these electromagnetic waves. We are living in a pool or rather an ocean of electromagnetic waves or radiations. And information is actually transmitted over these things. So our human ear is not capable of perceiving a cell phone signal, but our mobile phone is designed in such a way that they can actually tap the passing electromagnetic waves and also the information that was actually riding on these waves. And that is how our mobile is able to capture the cell phone calls that were made by people or the calls that you are making. Your ear is not having natural capability to get the information wirelessly across the globe. Only extended, this is an extended ear and mouth. This is the technology product. So if you look at the human society, there are two ways it is progressing. One way is using science and technology, it is extending its ability to perceive the universe and reconstruct the model of the universe. And the other way is undergoing an inner journey where you are actually seeing what the truth is without depending on science and technology. And as a matter of fact, we should be astonished by the fact that our ancient seers, They have calculated the exact distance between Earth and the sun without any gadget, without using any tape. They have done it. They have actually described the structure of an atom without looking in a microscope. There was no microscope. But our ancient sages, using their inner eye, using their inner powers, they could actually visit the entire universe and they could understand what the universe is and how it is operating, such like things. They have gained that kind of knowledge. How? Is it through outward travel or is it towards inward travel? Most of the sages, they have taken the path of inward journey. They have sat in meditations and then they started their inner voyage. And that's how the truth got revealed. So how we can actually extend our capabilities to perceive information without depending on technology? It is through certain spiritual practices that we can actually gain. So there are some relatives who have recently passed around us, but we are not aware. They are trying to communicate with us, but we are not aware. But if you have developed certain kind of qualities, if you have developed some kind of sensitivities, then you will be able to get the information that your own people who have died in the recent past, who still exist in the earth plane, are trying to communicate or interact with you. Many a time they're actually trying to warn you, saying that don't do this, it is not good for you, because they're able to see something which you cannot see. They're always trying to give you some advice. It is not only the dead relatives, but also you all have our own guardian angels. So these guardian angels are always with us and they're actually trying to give us a lot of information. Not only guardian angels, but your own Atma, which is at a higher plane than what you are. Now you and Jiva, your Jivatma, your body and Jivatma are partners. Okay, so it is at a lower level, but at a higher level, you have your own Atma, your own higher consciousness, which is far more intelligent than your Jivatma. Jivatma is confined. It is like putting a person in a prison. It's like putting a bird in a cage. We feel so much happy that, okay, we are alive, we are physically alive. But the truth is, our Jivatma is encased in our body. It is like putting in a prison. So when a person is put in a prison, what happens? All his powers are withdrawn. Can a person in prison run, walk? He can't run because he's confined. Means his powers are partially withdrawn or suspended. Same is the case when we are actually living in a human incarnation, in a physical incarnation. Some of our powers, natural powers, are withdrawn or suspended temporarily because it has got a different kind of purpose. So we should start exploring our real psychic capabilities, our real psychic powers, by undertaking some kind of spiritual practices. So if you look at the entire level of existence, if you look at the entire nature of reality or the cosmos or the multiverse or whatever it is, the ultimate thing, you can say that everything is nothing but energy and intelligence. We all know that universe is gigantic, beyond our imagination. Recently, I've shared one video where I've shown universe. How big is this universe? We cannot, as human beings, we cannot comprehend the kind of the dimensions of this universe. But if you look at the composition of universe, only 6% of the universe is made up of matter, like earth, stars, these kind of things. The remaining thing is invisible to human eye. It's a vast, vast, gigantic soup of energy and intelligence. People think that, okay, everything is energy. Even Albert Einstein, he said everything is energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. Fine. But what is mostly ignored is the invisible intelligence. This invisible intelligence is one thing which is organizing the entire world. It is something which is actually dictating energy. So, great majority of existence is nothing but invisible intelligence, intangible. So that is how when we say God, nobody can actually pinpoint God because it's a vast, expanded, boundless, formless intelligence. So if you look at the entire thing, everything is nothing but part of the greater reality or oneness, which can be seen as energy. And if you look at energy, energy can be in different grades. If the energy is tightly packed, very closely packed, we say that it is a physical entity. And if it is little further loosened, then we say that it is fluid. And further it is expanded, then we say that it is a gas. And beyond that, it says that it is plasma state. So everything that we witness is nothing but the same thing. All that is making difference is how tightly packed is this energy. If the energy is actually compressed and condensed very thickly in a small cubical space, if you are putting 10 million coins, the thickness or the density of that particular cube will be very high. But instead of putting 10 million, if you put only 10,000, so 10,000 entities are occupying the same space, then it is little fluid. And if you make it 100, it is still fluid. So that is how energy is varying in its density, is appearing in different forms. So if you look at the existence, you can see that we have a physical plane. We are all familiar with physical plane because everything can be seen with our eyes, everything can be felt with our hands, and everything can be tangible, perceivable. Because it is dense, energy is dense. You cannot see air, right? Because air is not packed, condensed. But whereas a small grain of sand, it has got lot of energy compressed within it, but not the liquid. Like that, the density is varying. That is how we find different planes. So there are 7 planes that we can talk about in this universe. According to the ancient wisdom, there are different levels, and the characteristics of all these planes are different. So physical plane is where we can find physical bodies, physical trees, physical objects, physical rocks, physical metals, gold. All that we see, all that we perceive are physical things because they belong to the earth, our physical realm. We have projected our consciousness into the physical realm, and that is how we are existing with bodies. And for this existence, we have actually taken up a body which is nothing but a vehicle for existence in this physical universe. And this physical body is equipped with 5 sensory organs. So that is it. If you go beyond this physical plane, you'll find an astral plane, or also a subplane, which we can say an etheric plane, which is almost similar to the physical plane. Only thing is that it is made up of finer form of energy. And if you go into astral plane, it is also part of physical and astral, but it is again made up of finer form of energy. So as we move progressively, the degree of fineness of the energy keeps increasing to the infinitude. So that is how we are having existence in different planes. And if you look at human body, we all know that, okay, we have a body. We say that, okay, looking at our physical body, this is our body. But as a matter of fact, you should understand that our physical body is not the only body, but we have 7-layer structure of body. The first body with which we are all familiar is the physical body, and interpenetrating this physical body is an energy body which is known as etheric body. What is etheric body made up of? It is made up of fine particles of energy, much finer, very fine particles of energy, which are vibrating at a different frequencies. So if you ask, what is this physical body made up of? It is made up of cells and tissues. These cells and tissues are in turn made up of what? They are made up of molecules. What are these molecules made up of? They are made up of atoms. And what are these atoms made up of? They are made up of electrons, protons, and neutrons. And what are these electrons, neutrons made up of? They are made up of subatomic particles which are not visible to the eye, even to the microscope. They are not visible, but they are existing. So that kind of thing, energy, is actually composing our physical body. Just the way the physical body is composed of these kind of things, even our etheric body is made up of much finer particles of energy. So if you look at human body, there is a layer of energy which can be seen with naked eyes. If you focus the image of a person against any white wall, if you ask anybody to stand in front of the white wall, you sit at distance and keep observing, then you will start seeing a thin vapor kind of thing surrounding the body, which is in the form of an oval. So that is what is known as etheric body. So etheric body is not something which is like a watertight compartment. It is actually extending from inside the physical body. Means it is existing inside the physical body as well as outside the physical body. So it is something which is extending beyond the physical body. So this is a very important thing. This etheric body is a very important thing, because this etheric body is made up of 72,000 energy channels. It's a network of energy channels. So the cosmic energy that we are actually taking, the prana shakti that we are actually taking in the form of air, is actually getting circulated in this etheric body. The moment we stop breathing, the etheric body stops getting the prana shakti, and that is how the body dies. So this etheric body and the physical body are so intently, they are so much interconnected, interpenetrated, that this etheric body looks exactly like your own body. It's like a photocopy. That is how it is known as etheric double. Means it is a photocopy of the physical body. So when a person dies, what happens? There is one connection between etheric body and physical body, that is in the form of a light, a silver cord. That is what they call it as silver cord. So there is a connection, an intimate connection between physical body and the etheric body. And at the time of death, this silver cord is permanently cut off. The link between the etheric body and the physical body is permanently cut off. The moment it is cut off, both are separated. Etheric body wants to get into the physical body, but it cannot get into the body. Even if it goes, it just passes away from the physical body. Because the air, the breath, the prana shakti is the connecting bridge between the body and your etheric body. So the etheric body gets starvation because the body no longer inhales or exhales. Dead body doesn't inhale or exhale. So there is no exchange of prana. That is how the etheric body, it actually gets lost after physical body. So this etheric body is having its own system, energy system. I told you that the etheric body is made up of 72,000 energy channels spread across all over the body. It is through these energy channels that the entire Prana Shakti is actually circulating in the body. So from top of the head to bottom of the legs, the energy is continuously moving. The energy is moving. The Prana Shakti is moving. That is how your physical body is alive. By any chance, if there is any blockage in any of the energy channels, it manifests in the form of a disease, a health disorder. For example, people having heart disease, the Prana Shakti is congested in this particular region. Means all the energy channels, small energy channels, they get blocked. Though there is no energy flowing in this region. That is how the physical body starts getting disintegrated. Means the physical health of the heart and the entire region of the heart, the energy channels, there is no flow of energy, and that is how they start slowly disintegrating, and that is how it manifests as a disease or a disorder. Same is the case with every disease. If you are diabetic, it is because the energy channels pertaining to your spleen chakra are blocked. There is a congestion. So usually in a drainage system, when there is a blockage, what happens? The flow stops and everything gets congested. And then the disharmony will start entering into the system. So that is the importance of this etheric body. So usually when people get operated, they don't feel the pain because they are under anesthetic effect. They were subjected to some anesthetic gases, and because of that, they lose their consciousness. So what is happening? Why there is no pain? The body is there, the pain should be there, but just because you are putting a drug, why pain is missing? It is because under the influence of certain drugs, this etheric body, it gets slightly displaced temporarily. So when there is no etheric body attached to the physical body, the body doesn't have pain. And that's how surgeons make all the procedures, and then the stage they give anesthetic drugs for some time. Patient will not feel any pain. Only after certain time they will get their etheric body back onto the physical body, and that is how they will start feeling the pain. Similarly, people who undergo accidents, road accidents, big accidents, they lose their consciousness immediately because of the accidents or whatsoever it is. There is a jerk wherein the etheric body is actually thrown off from the physical body temporarily. And the person doesn't have any pain. He will be bleeding, he will be having so much of fatal wounds, but they are simply sleeping. Have you ever seen people like that? They don't cry when they are unconscious. They don't cry because they don't have pain, because the etheric body is displaced. Only after some time it comes. Once it is back in the body, they'll start crying, they'll start panicking, they'll start complaining, and again they become unconscious. Like that, etheric body comes and goes off. That is how people during accidents, they don't remember most of the things. Same is the case with medical surgeries also. Under anesthetic effect, the etheric body is actually getting temporarily displaced. So if you look at the etheric body as such, you find that there are predominantly certain things. Means we told that it is a huge network of 72,000 energy channels, but there are some major channels, and these major channels are Ida, Pingala, and Sushumna nadis. These are the three main nadis: Ida, Pingala, and Sushma. Sushma is the central meridian which is passing through our spinal cord. So Ida is the left side and Pingala is the right side. Left is considered to be moon or lunar, and the right side is supposed to be the sun. This is warm, this is cold. Like that, the human system is actually a balance between Ida and Pingala. And once the body attains the stability, it is through the Sushmana Nadi that the energy starts flowing. So if you observe yourself, sometimes you will be breathing through your left nostril and sometimes through your right nostril, not through both, unless you have attained certain stage. So for most of the people, either they are dominated by the left or the right, and it actually gets reversed, sometimes left, sometimes right. Means sometimes masculine, sometimes feminine. This kind of energy shifting is actually taking place within the body. But with sadhana, if you actually start making the energy flow through your Sushmana Nadi, means you're balancing both your Ida and Pingala. When you balance both your Ida and Pingala, what happens is the energy will start flowing through your central meridian, that is the Sushmana Nadi. Then both your nostrils are open, both sides are perfectly balanced. The feminine aspect and the masculine aspect of the body, they are perfectly balanced, and that is how the energy flow is smooth. So along with this network or pipeline of energy channels, we also have some power stations. These power stations are nothing but the chakras. There are several chakras on human bodies. So if you see, only few chakras are popular, remaining chakras are not much discussed. So Hindu tradition, common tradition, it talks only about 7 chakras, Shed chakras, that's what they say. It doesn't mean that there are only 7 chakras, there are more than 7 chakras. There are around 11 major chakras, and there are so many minor chakras, and there are some even smaller chakras. If you look at our fingertips, all our fingertips are having mini chakras, very small chakras. They are also vibrating, they are also moving. And if you look at our major chakras, the first chakra is the Sahasrara chakra, which is just above the head. It is supposed to have 1,000 petals, Sahasrara, 1,000 dimensions, 1,000 chakras. And then we have Phala chakra, which is known as Jnana chakra, which is responsible for intelligence. This chakra is connectivity to the divine world, higher worlds. This Jnana chakra is information or knowledge center. And then we have what you call, most of the people, they say it is the third eye. This chakra, Jnana chakra, and then, yeah,
Agna chakra.
Agna chakra.
Agna chakra.
Agna means what? Agna chakra means, Agna means command. So this chakra is one thing which is a command and control center. It is also known as master chakra, which is actually controlling all the chakras, regulating all other chakras, this Jnana chakra. And they have physical counterparts. This Jnana chakra is having its counterpart in the form of pineal gland, which is located exactly in the middle of the brain. And then for this Agna chakra, we have pituitary gland, which is also known as master gland. These are the glands which are actually secreting some kinds of hormones. Okay, we'll talk about these things. Then we have throat chakra, Visuddhi. So this chakra, very few people talk about this forehead chakra. Everybody talks only about Agna chakra. Sahasrara, Agna. In between there is another chakra which is known to very few people, but it is one of the most important chakra. Then coming down, we have throat chakra. This is also a very, very important chakra because this is the center of higher creativity. All the creativity of human beings actually comes from throat chakra. Okay, so this is the chakra which is responsible for our speech, our ability to speech. And then beneath it, we have solar plexus chakra, which is exactly in the middle of the rib. This solar chakra, people give different locations, but according to pranic healing and even according to ancient Egyptian scriptures, this is the seat of solar plexus chakra. This solar plexus chakra has two dimensions. One is the front part known as front solar plexus chakra, and exactly opposite side on the back side is back solar plexus chakra. Okay, these chakras are the centers of lower emotions. Lower emotions, you know what lower emotions means: anger, depression, fear. So this is the center of feelings. Just little next to this is heart chakra, which is located exactly on the heart, physical heart. So people don't talk about this heart chakra. Even this heart chakra has two dimensions, the front dimension and the back dimension. The front heart chakra and the back heart chakra. Okay. So these heart chakras are the centers of higher emotions: love, joy, compassion, devotion. Higher emotions, lower emotions. Then we have a chakra which is exactly on the navel chakra. So this chakra is something which is actually controlling all our tummy region, means entire all the organs which are actually inside our stomach, like liver, pancreas, all the things is actually controlled by this navel chakra. Okay, so just adjacent to navel chakra is on the left side is spleen chakra. This is a chakra which nobody talks about. This chakra is something which is responsible for our prana shakti. Means through spleen chakra, our human system is absorbing prana shakti from the external environment. So this is also a very important thing. Then just behind the navel chakra, just below it, there is another chakra called known as Mengmai chakra. This is the chakra which is actually regulating your blood pressure. So if you are basically a very hypertensive person, person having so much of blood pressure, then your Mengmai chakra will be very big. Otherwise, it will be very small. I'll talk more about it. Then if you go down, then you will find what? The sex chakra. This chakra and the throat chakra are connected. This is known as the center of higher creativity, and this one, the lower part, the sex chakra, is known as the center for lower creativity. Lower creativity in the sense, this is the chakra which is responsible for reproduction. Reproduction is what? It is also a creation, but you don't deliberately create it. If you are a musician, you compose a music. You do it because of your higher creative center, creativity. You're not using your lower creativeness. Lower creativity is something which is an automated process. So the process of procreation, making children, babies, is automated, genetically encoded. So we don't have to do anything. Though it is a creative center, it is not a higher creative, it is a lower creative. It is actually converted into a genetic code, which is automatically then when people have sexual intercourse, automatically they get children. So this is what is known as sex chakra. It actually controls the entire urinary tract system and also the reproductive organs. And finally, we have a chakra which is very important chakra, that is what is known as the basic chakra or Mooladhara chakra. So this Mooladhara chakra is located exactly at the tip of the spinal cord. So this is responsible for your entire body vitality. If your basic chakra is not strong, you will not be strong. Means you'll, as you age, as you become old, your basic chakra will start becoming depleted, depleted, depleted. So this is the system. Like all these chakras, they are not static. They're actually moving in clockwise and anti-clockwise direction. Like the spin in a washing machine, you can see front-loaded system. They just move like this, to and fro, to and fro. They're actually moving. So when these chakras are moving in a clockwise direction, what is happening? Energy is actually absorbed. And when the chakra is moving in anti-clockwise direction, what is happening? It is flushing of energy. So these power houses, these chakras, the power houses, they are continuously absorbing energy, air prana, and they're actually releasing it. Like how we are breathing continuously in and out, even our chakras are actually having this rhythmic movement of taking the energy and giving away the used up energy. That is how the human system is actually functioning. So these chakras are connected to these 72,000 energy channels, and each chakra is controlling certain part of the energy network. That is how energy is actually circulated in the body, and again it is actually flushed out from the body. That is how the system is living. So chakras, the size of chakras are not same for all people. For some people, the radius or the diameter or the circumference of the chakra will be this much. For some people, it could be small. For some people, it could be very big. Like that, depending upon the evolutionary stage of the person, the size of the chakras will be there. So for people who practice spirituality very strongly and aggressively, the sizes of chakras are often very, very big, almost the size of big, big plates. And in case of rishis, it could be much, much higher. And in some case of other people, it could be even expanding till meters. That is how we can actually feel the presence of people, highly radiant people. We can feel their presence even from a distance because they are actually radiating so much of energy. The radiation of energy means the chakras are highly activated and they're actually working at a full function and they're actually having a big, big sizes. So along with these chakras, we also have an aura, which is actually a thin energy field which is covering our physical body. So there are two types of auras. One is the inner aura, which is just slightly above, extended beyond the physical body. Like this inner one, like this inner, you can see inner layer. This is the outer inner aura. Beyond that, there is another layer of energy that we call it as outer aura. So if you look at a torchlight, you can see a concentrated bright circle, which is actually having an outer circle, which we call them as umbra and penumbra regions, right? Similarly, our aura is also having umbra and penumbra region kind of things. So every human being is having this kind of energy system. Means if you look from a clairvoyant perspective, you can actually see the aura of the person. You can also feel the aura of people at different levels. So that is how the etheric body is organized. Okay. So all this information is very important for you to understand the entire concept of psychic potentiality. So just above the etheric body, we have another body which is interpenetrating the physical body, the etheric body, and even beyond that. It is actually coming. So it is not something above the etheric body, but it is something which is interpenetrating etheric body and extending beyond etheric body. And this body is known as the astral body. So astral body is a body which is made up of much finer form of energy than the etheric body. It's a different gradation of energy. It has got a different texture. So there is a world which is exactly like our physical world, and that world is known as an astral world. It is like a physical counterpart. See, the kind of colors that we see in physical world is nothing when we compare the kind of colors and hues that exist in the etheric plane. If any one of you have been to the etheric plane, you will understand the brilliant composition of colors, the brilliant sounds, everything is like some kind of heavenly kind of thing. That's a plane. So when I'm talking about planes, okay, etheric plane, astral plane, mental plane, doesn't mean that there are different geographical locations or territories. There are actually different dimensions existing within the same place. So when I'm sitting here, etheric plane or the astral plane is not somewhere outside. It is here. It is a dimension. Maybe you might feel a little difficult in terms of understanding this concept, but this is a different dimension. So when you enter into that particular dimension, you will be able to see these things. They're all located here only, not somewhere. Okay, you should understand this concept. So this emotional layer or the etheric layer, astral body is also known as emotional plane because all our feelings, it could be good feeling, it could be bad feeling, they all exist in this plane. Means they belong to these frequencies. All the feelings belong to these emotional frequencies, astral plane. So usually when human beings, they die, first body is the physical body. The physical body gets paralyzed. There is no energy flow. So the body will start deteriorating and the body has to be cremated or buried within 1 or 2 days. Otherwise it gets horrible and finally it disintegrates. It disappears into nature. So physical body dies. So within 24-48 hours, it will start decaying. But this etheric body is something which doesn't understand death. It thinks that it is still alive and it wants to get back into the body. It makes a lot of vain attempts in terms of entering into the physical body, but it doesn't make any sense to it because it just penetrates and moves from this side to that side. It cannot stick to the body. It goes into a lot of confused state. It doesn't understand that it has died. It has got consciousness. Etheric body has got its own consciousness. So it is under the illusion that it is still alive. So it keeps trying to enter into the body. It actually witnesses all the possession around the body. It thinks why people are crying and other things. That is what it is. So the moment you start cremating the body, the etheric body understands that the body has died. So it has lost its life. So with this understanding, the etheric body will start disintegrating and within 1-2 days, it also dies. The consciousness at the etheric body is lost. So no longer the body thinks that it is alive. So in case of burials, the body remains there for a lot of time. So during that time, this etheric body still lives in illusion, thinking that it is alive. It wants to get back its body. So it keeps trying to get into the body, but it cannot go. That is how many people in burial grounds, they see ghosts. They can see a thin vapor kind of bluish entities hovering over the crematories. So the practice of cremation that is practiced in Hinduism is very much advisable because there's no point in actually making etheric body believe that it is still alive. The moment the body is destroyed, the etheric body dies. So there ends the story. The next one is the astral body. This body is the body of desires, wishes, dreams. So even after the etheric body dies, the emotional body doesn't die immediately. Dying means disintegrating. It still believes that it is alive. And it is actually driven by its desires, intense desires. For example, some person died without getting married, but the person had strong desire to get married. So in the astral plane, he will be in a state where he's always waiting to get married. So most of the time he keeps spending looking for matches or trying for getting a alliance. So that is how he spends. By chance, if some person dies in a road accident, that person's last impression would be coming and getting hit by something and the feelings associated with it. So during that time, even after the etheric body is died, this body, the astral body, still lives in the illusion that it is experiencing the same thing, the last feelings, panic, truck coming and hitting, losing consciousness, died, again wake up. So it spends a lot of time in this loop. Like that, if you have so much of desire for money, if you have desire for building house, like that, if you have so many desires, so you'll be living in the astral world for a lot of time, believing that it is existing. So in astral world, you will be doing all these kind of things. So if you look at astral world, predominantly you will see in this astral world, if you are an astral traveler, if you see what is existing in the astral world is people who have recently died and who have not yet moved to the higher planes, they'll be freely wandering as if they are living people. Or you'll find some people who are alive but sleeping during that point of time. So usually what happens is when we are actually sleeping, our astral body moves away from the physical body and wanders in astral dimensions or in the astral realm, and then it is actually witnessing different situations or scenarios. So much before something is going to happen, already that event would have happened in the astral zone. So if you're traveling in astral plane, much before you witness the same thing in the physical plane, you're actually witnessing in the astral plane. So that is how when you're in astral mode, when you're actually doing astral travel, you will come across things, those things which are going to happen to you in near future. Even the dreams, what is a dream? Nothing but an astral experience. When I ask some people like, have you ever experienced any astral travel? They say no. But the reality is every night, or for that matter, every time they sleep, whether it is night or daytime, their body is moving into an unknown territory, and it is actually wandering in different directions, moving, getting a lot of information and coming back. But the problem is our physical brain, unless it is prepared, unless it is tuned, it will not register these experiences. The only difference people who do astral travel and people who doesn't do astral travel, so-called, is their ability to retain the information, because their brain cells are not yet registered, they are not activated. The moment the brain cells are activated, whatever experience you have in your dream state or in your astral experience will be registered in your physical brain. And even after you come out of your sleep, you'll be able to recall each and everything. So how do you activate your brain cells, your physical brain cells? It is through spiritual practices. The moment you start doing the meditation, your physical brain, the cells, trillions of cells in your brain, in your physical brain, they start getting activated. Once they are activated, they are capable of registering the experiences, not only during the physical awareness, but also during your dream state or in your astral state. So it is this astral stage which is actually a very important thing for all your psychic experiences, because the chakras, what we talked about, the chakras in the etheric plane, they are also present at the astral level. So we have astral chakras, like your etheric chakras, you also have the astral version, which are much powerful. When these chakras are activated, you'll start seeing things which your eyes cannot show. You'll start hearing things which your ears cannot hear. You can perceive anything at a non-physical level And you can register these experiences and bring this experience back during your physical awareness. This is the essence of the entire workshop that I'm talking about. Your ability to register the experiences that you're experiencing at an unconscious level, and remembering this and bringing this back into your day-to-day life and applying that kind of supernatural intelligence information in your practical life to make life easier at the physical level. That is the reason why I'm saying we need to have these special powers. It is not an exclusive prerogative of any one person. If I have got it, even you will get it. Only thing is that you need to have interest. If you think, okay, what will I get if by having these things? Understand, information is power. The more knowledge you have, the more power you have. So, if you are a person with extra abilities, you will have solutions for many problems for which you don't know any solution. There are many ways, like there are many problems in life. We don't understand why we have some kind of health problem. Everything will be good, but health is a big issue for them. They'll be suffering. They will have all sophisticated medicines. They have money, so they get treatment, but they don't get the cure because they don't know the reason for their illness or disease or ill health. That information can be gained at a higher consciousness level, that is at the astral level. You will understand why. Without any cause, there cannot be any effect. What is disease? It is an effect. It is not the cause. And for this effect, what is the cause? At physical level, you say that this person is eating this kind of food. That's the reason why he's having. His lifestyle is like this. Because of that, he's having this problem. Yes, physical level, it is true. But at a psychic level, it doesn't hold good. So if you want to have treatment for this one, you need to do the treatment at this level. Similarly, sometimes all of a sudden, we get into financial problems for no reason. So to get answers, to discover the problems, the source or the roots of the problems, you need to go back into different zones, and then you'll get understanding. With the understanding, you can come up with a solution, and with that, you can actually resolve your problem. So that is the advantage of having the extended senses. It's not for a fancy or for just to show off your powers to other people. It is for improving your own life situation, and it is also for improving the life situations of other people. For example, if I can actually penetrate into your aura and I can see what exactly is the problem, the source of the problem, I can give you a solution. And using the solution, you can improve your situation. So that is how we need to extend our powers. So above this emotional body, we have another body which is known as mental body, which is not a watertight compartment. Instead, it is actually penetrating core from the physical body to etheric body to astral body and the extended mental body. So what is this mental body? Mental body is made up of frequencies, energy particles vibrating at a higher frequency than the astral body. And this mental body is composed of what? It is composed of thought entities. From the time you are born till now, you are bombarded with so many thoughts, so many ideas, so many plans, so many strategies, all things pertaining to your mental activity. They belong to the realm of mental plane and is composed of mental body. And we are also having a layer of mental body. So after some time, after the physical body dies, etheric body dies, and after etheric body, the astral body dies, and after astral body, the mental body also remains there. So mental body is made up of mental entities, means high degree of high vibrating energy entities. They also have different shapes. They differ in their sizes. very strong thoughts tend to become very radiant in beautiful colors and with beautiful auras sizes, whereas insignificant thoughts will be small, weak vibrations. So there is a lot of activity that is happening in our mental plane. So even after the astral body dies, the mental realm continues for some time. Even if you look at the mental plane, in this mental plane, you'll find God surprisingly. You'll find Lord Ganesha, you'll find Lord Hanuman, you'll find Lord Rama, because these entities or divine entities, they were conceptualized in human mind and they were continued for generations together. People never saw Rama, people never saw Hanuman, but they had a belief that Hanuman existed and they projected their energies onto this entity called Hanuman. Thousands and thousands of generations and thousands of people, they have actually projected their mental energies in a divinity called Hanuman. Now he is a real entity in the mental plane. He exists in the mental plane. He exists, whether we don't know whether he really lived during that time or not, but by virtue of the fact that millions and millions of people for thousands and thousands of generations have projected on the image of Lord Hanma, now Lord Hanma is a real entity in the mental world. If you navigate the mental world, you will find all the divine entities, not only the divine entities, but also the Rakshasas, because when we are talking about Rama, we've also talked about Ravana. We are also projecting our energies on Ravana. That is how we have actually created divine entities or Rakshasas or demons. And this mental world is made up of all these things. During your sleep time, you also enter into this mental plane and you come across all these entities. So, however, this is also not a permanent template. So after the causal body dies, even the mental body dies. So for some people, it might take few days, but for some people, it could take even centuries. There are some people who are living in astral plane for more than thousands of years. They are permanently stuck up there because of their own natural evolutionary state. And there are people who might have been living even for 10,000s of years or so many timeless times in the mental plane. But on an average, people like us, we might disintegrate within few years, if not few months, maybe within 1 year or 2 years before we take another incarnation. So these four bodies, the physical body, the etheric body, the astral body, and the mental body, they are temporary bodies. But beyond that, we have another body, which is known as the causal body. And this is the body which is a permanent body. It is not going to die, it is existing. It will continue to exist. This causal body is the body which is containing all our karmic bank balance. All our life experiences, they are encoded and they're actually stored in this plane, the causal plane. This is the place where cause and effect will happen. So with every incarnation, we will be collecting hundreds and hundreds of impressions, and all these impressions are actually stored in the causal body, and it is a permanent repository. So these experiences are what we call as karmas. So all our karmas, good karmas, bad karmas, are all stored in this template. This is what we call it as causal template or causal body. So next time when you want to take reincarnation on earth, what you do? You go and then you pick up few of the karmas from the existing store of karmas from the causal body, and then you bring it along with you into the earth plane, into the physical body, and your entire story, your life theme is actually created much before you take your physical birth. So you have actually accepted all these things that are supposed to happen to you in this incarnation. The way you look, the way you talk, the way you live, everything is already, you have voluntarily picked up. So these things in our Hindu literature, we call it as Sanchita Karmas. So Sanchita Karma is a full set of all the karmas that you have been accumulating since ages. So out of those things, you pick up few, you call them as Prarabdha Karmas. Means these are the karmas with which you are coming into the earth. So whether you are going to become a doctor, whether you are going to be a nurse, or you are going to be a soldier, whether you are going to be an actor, everything is actually decided. It's not that you have come and you are taking a decision that you'll become a doctor. Already it is decided. You have to live inside this template, within this counters, within this territory. You can operate. You have a free will where you can actually operate, change your own bad karmas, convert good karmas, but within the sphere of this Sanchita Karmas. We cannot go beyond that. So, in our workshop, we are going to penetrate into different levels. We are going to see astral world, we are going to see the mental world, we are going to see the causal world. So we have different techniques for doing these things, and in the coming days we are going to talk about these things. So today it is already 1:30. I think we should, wind up the session for today. So now we'll have question and answer session. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Yeah. Any questions, please? 5 minutes of Q&A session. You can also give your feedback. You can. Yeah, any question, any feedback?
Master, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear me, Master?
Yes, yes. Please tell me.
I'm traveling, Master, but I have a doubt that you told Paramatma a small portion of that is called Atma, and then
Right.
from Atma we are getting Jivatma.
Okay.
Is it correct, Master?
Yes, yes, right.
But somewhat vague, Master, for me to understand that
Concept.
connection.
Yeah. See, it is like the sun is one entity, right? Sun as such is a single entity. But the light that is emanating from the sun, thousands and thousands of rays are moving. How are the rays connected to the sun? Rays are nothing but the projection of the sun. But each ray has got its own identity, its own individuality. But they originate from the same thing, right? Similarly, we are also projected from the Supreme Self. We might think that we are different, God is different. The reality is we are connected. We are at one end of the spectrum, and the Supreme God or the Divine Self is at the other end. We are connected, but we are separated. Hello. Yeah, any clarification required? So nobody is coming forward for any question. So I assume that we don't have any questions. So let us wind up this session for today. So I will upload this recording and I will create the access link to you. So any one of you can go back and you can watch this video today evening or tomorrow or whenever it is comfortable. People who are not present but who have subscribed for this program, they can also access this. Okay, so with this note, I'm taking leave. Thank you all so much for taking part in this meeting. Thank you for being so good listeners. I'm so happy that you have listened to my session for almost 2 hours without any break. Thank you so much. Have a nice day.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all.